the record. Okay,
Okay, we're going.
we're going. To everybody who doesn't know, this is the saxophonist Sam Dillon, very famous in New York City, fantastic player, fantastic person. Got the pleasure to see and hear him last night at Swing 46. Very fun. My name is Wes, if anybody here somehow doesn't know me at this point. Okay, I'll start with this question that Pat asked because he'd get mad at me if I didn't ask.
Yeah.
I'll summarize what he said. He's asking, how do you play so fast, and what are the secrets to playing so fast?
Well, when I first heard some of my favorite players like uh Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, I was around fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I fell in love with that recording on Sunny Side Up.
Hmm.
And I remember the first thing that hit me was like after just loving what they were playing and everything they were doing. I thought, damn, these guys can play so fast. And I remember even thinking that to myself. And it's funny now, you go back and listen to that track on Eternal Triangle, and it's actually medium up now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's wild the way things, when you first hear them and you first um, experience them, they can almost in a certain way, from a technical standpoint, be way more impressive at first than they end up being once you learn how to do it. And I think that that kind of sentiment is true for how I feel now, because after just, spending so much time trying to master the instrument and, you know, uh, spend so much time creating my own kind of vocabulary and practicing, uh, you know, uh, different tempos and with a metronome and all that kind of stuff. Now it doesn't really seem too fast to me.
Yeah.
So I think in a short answer, we're not obviously having like a private lesson where I can show specific technical exercises. And
Yeah.
for anyone that's viewing out there who is interested in finding out about that stuff, I'm more than happy to, give you private lesson and anything like that. But for a quick moment right now, I would say that the two things that really help me are obviously listening to the master musicians play, because when you have the sound in your ear, that's really ultimately what's going to let your technique follow suit. You're going to end up trying to sound that way if you have it in your ear already. And then the second thing is just, you know, uh, try to actually then go and play those tempos yourself and just work really hard. So
Yeah.
thank you for the compliment, though.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
of course. That was from Patrick Bartley, by the way. And
Oh, wow.
he said a lot more expletives in the message, but I thought I wouldn't put that on air.
Well,
But
Patrick doesn't need to get any advice from me. Patrick is killing, and he probably knows everything and more that I might even contribute to a student trying to play fast. But uh, with that said, it's also really cool to hear, you know, someone like Patrick or whoever perspective on these things, because that's also what makes each one of us individual artists, and special, because even though we might say similar stuff, we're all going to have our own way of explaining it. So I would be equally as interested to hear what how Patrick would answer that question. So cool.
give me just a sec. Okay, this question I'm not super sure if it applies to you. It might.
Mhm.
How do you find inspiration when composing a commission that's been requested to be about a certain theme?
Oh, well, I don't know if I've actually been commissioned to compose for a certain theme. I guess any the only thing that I could find that's analogous to that is if I'm choosing to write music for a specific recording date.
Mm.
Um, and basically that's essentially me commissioning myself for that. So uh, along those lines, I think for me, I have a recording date at the end of April that's coming up that I'm going to be recording with Andrew on. Me and Andrew are going to, it's going to be our second recording together. This time it's going to be with a full rhythm section, piano, bass, and drums. And we're both going to try to contribute like 4 to 5 charts for it. And very much writing songs that I think are quote unquote in our wheelhouse, kind of like a modern post bop, slightly modal, but very uh, sound and structured harmonically at the same time, kind of thing, where we can both just kind of feel free to do what we do best. Um, and think about the personnel in the band as well, how the band's going to interact with those things, how the band's going to interact with those charts, and all of those things that might end up contributing to the best musical and most fun situation. So that's kind of where my head is at for this upcoming project, and I imagine that anyone else who's commissioned to write music is probably going to be concerned with all of those things. Like, what is the music for? Who's the audience? Why are we doing this? What is the general theme of these things? And what is the impact that I'm trying to have with my music? All of those things are important to have in the back of your head, even when you get down to the nitty gritty of each specific tune and you're in it. And that's the challenge. You might have this idea in the back of your head, and then when you sit down and write something, whatever comes out can be completely different, and you have to be open to accepting, okay, wait, this actually might work for this, or this won't.
Yeah,
And that's a balancing act between what you actually end up putting out there and the idea that you have in your head. And it's kind of like being a sculptor of sorts. You'll have the base idea, and then as you go along, you're going to be augmenting things to kind of try to get closer to the idea that you have in your head.
makes sense. Okay. This is from one of our moderators, Jones. What are some of your favorite songs slash albums to listen to right now?
Oh, right now. Well, I usually have some kind of Coltrane or whatever recording on. Um, as far as more modern recordings, I actually started re-listening to a great Seamus Blake recording called Way Out Willie. It's
Hmm.
in one of my favorite, I guess you could call it quote unquote modern uh, recordings.
Yeah.
Um, I also am really into this Coltrane recording right now. He made 2 weeks before transition, and it's called the John Coltrane Quartet Plays. And it's very modally oriented, and he plays a lot of great material on there. So I love that. Um, um, what else am I listening to? All sorts of stuff. I was just checking out Andrew Gould's latest record. I'm checking out another one of my buddy's latest record, Nick Biella, that just came out. Or his actually singles. Um, I was checking out the Chris Potter recording,
Oh, cool.
the latest Chris, which is amazing. Um, Revisiting Mark Turner's Yam Yam,
Mhm.
which is amazing. And then doing some uh, fine tuning of some transcriptions that I did for students of George Coleman's solo on Cherokee and Apache
Mhm.
Dance, which is the same changes as
Mhm.
Cherokee, to finalize and get that really well written out for my students to be able to read.
Yeah.
And uh, going back and revisiting them and just hearing, George basically just rip through some bebop.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, Chet Baker has these recordings out with George Coleman. There's 5 of them from 1961, and it's all quintet, and it's all standard tunes, blues forms, rhythm change forms, and anyone who really wants to get a really good dose of some great George Coleman playing, I would suggest go check those recordings out.
Cool. Okay. This is from one of my, I think, future UNF buddies going to UNF next year. How did you go about landing some of those really prestigious big band gigs that you do in New York?
I
Uh,
didn't. I didn't. They landed on me. And I think I get that question a lot. It seems like there's a lot of there's a lot of concern these days, understandably, with how to deal with the quote unquote music business. How do I get ahead and all this kind of stuff? And the truth of it is that I didn't really ever concern myself with that too much at all. What I did do though was try to constantly be playing with my friends and try to find maybe a little gig for myself somewhere where I could advertise playing somewhere maybe once or twice a month or maybe at one point it was once every week, but that way I'm in the process or in the habit of promoting myself, getting music together, and consistently kind of like putting my name out there,
mhm.
and doing that for about a period of 10 years and being in New York City for that period of time allowed me to not only build up a good reputation, but also to just kind of get my name out there and have people consider me for things when they would start to open up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it happens. It's not like I said, I'm going to be in the 8-Bit Big Band and like I went for that gig at
Yeah.
all. It didn't happen that way. As a matter of fact, the beginning of that band was another band that Charlie Rosen, who runs the 8-Bit Big Band, started at this place called 54 Below, which is basically a Broadway show. And we would do these cabaret acts for all of these singers. And it was like the 54 Below Big Band. And we would do this. This was like a once a month thing. Sometimes he would call me. Sometimes he would call like, a handful of the other smoking tenor players in New York City. And all the while we were reading these charts that Charlie wrote, which were
Hmm.
like incredibly difficult. And I feel like that was a huge part of building the basis for his uh, uh, advancing to the 8-Bit Big Band because he was writing big band charts for all of
Yeah.
us at that time. And I was in the pool of musicians that he was using then too, also just from being around New York.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is where I met Charlie. That's how it all started. And then when he started to form the big band, it just kind of was like a natural progression into that. So the real lesson for uh, any young students or young professionals out there is that the people you're friends with now and the colleagues that are like really trying to go for it and the people that are trying to make stuff happen right now, those are the people that you want to continue to have like, a really meaningful relationship with and continue to grow musically with. Because what's going to happen is you guys are going to actually end up creating your own quote unquote 8-Bit Big Band at some point. And it's funny the way that works. You guys see like, oh wow, the 8-Bit Big Man and Charlie's winning all these Grammys and all this stuff, and like, how do I get involved in that? But you know, it's not really so much that thing as much as it is that you guys will create your own version of that, you know,
Yeah.
and grow together from where you're at now.
Yeah. Very hopeful look on the future. This is from a user named Phoenix. Your compositions and the pieces you've made blend genres seamlessly. Can you share a bit about what sparks your creativity and how you approach the process of composing?
Oh, well, that's very kind, and I'm happy that it sounds like it's seamless. Um I think each song is different when I sit down and write it, and um I don't necessarily try to think about the exact genre of the song that I'll be writing, or exactly, what it might be characterized as. I'm just trying to write a song that's going to be basically a good vehicle for my voice and what
Yeah.
I'm going to be trying to play. That's what I write a song for. And so, um, beyond that, I don't give it too much thought. I'm just going to sit down and basically try to write something that I think is going to be fun and cool for me to play.
Yeah.
Or, or if it's something that I'm trying to work on, I'll write my own tune with a certain set of chord changes or in a certain meter or something that's going to give me a vehicle or something that puts everything in context to actually play. And that's definitely also a big part of what I talk about with my students, because you can spend all this time practicing all this stuff on the saxophone away from music itself, away from a song itself. And the biggest, shortcoming that I find that people have, including myself, is you get lost in practicing an actual thing or exercise or whatever, and you forget that it's supposed to be related to music. So either try to make sure that you're putting it on some kind of standard progression or blues or something, or actually write your own song so you have the thing that you're shedding or working on actually contribute to the music that you're going to be playing, and that way it kind of brings it all together. So
Yeah.
that's definitely what I have in mind when I'm composing.
Okay. This is another one from Phoenix. Your renditions of songs and general playing is hauntingly beautiful. Can you share some techniques you've used to achieve such a mode of sax playing?
Oh, well, yeah, I do also like to make sure that everything I'm playing, whether I'm practicing or whether it's a song that I'm learning, I really want to be singing through the instrument. And I think that that's the kind of secret with being able to play a lot of maybe more abstract sounds. If you spend the time you need to be able to really sing some complicated um, device or harmonic device that you're practicing through the instrument, and you can really emote, you really allow your mind and your soul and your body to connect to whatever the notes are that you're playing. That's when you're going to be able to really say something to someone else, right? And it's the same thing as whether, if we were giving an interview right now and I just was talking to you in monotone, it would be way like weirder and like harder to relate to what I was saying if I was like, I'm writing all these songs and I'm hoping to make sense out of them, and I am whatever,
Yeah,
you get it.
I
So
get it.
point being that you gotta put some emotion on everything that you're doing and saying and connect to it and have a deeper desire to try to communicate what I'm feeling and trying to say. And that's what's going to make people respond. That's what's going to give you that emotive quality, like he's talking about,
Yeah,
you know. And it's just a matter of connecting to the ideas and believing in what you're doing, and like they say, mean what you say.
yeah.
So,
Okay. This is a comedic one. What is your
okay.
favorite Pringles flavor?
Oh, my favorite. I'm gonna. Well, you know what? Sour cream and onion.
Okay.
It's
Answer
classic.
phase.
It's classic, but uh, got to. I that hits the spot. You know.
Okay. This is one from one of our moderators. If you had to name one jazz technique book that you got the most out of, what would it be?
Technique. Now, a technique is an interesting expression. I mean, I don't know if they mean like actually like just speed playing fast, because I don't even know if there's a book out there for that exactly. But the best book that I feel like covers everything is one of the Bergonzi books,
Hmm.
and it's called I think it might be volume 4, but he has like 7 of those
Yeah.
books out, or 7 or 8. it's the one that I like the best is called Developing a Jazz Language.
Okay.
And I use that one because the Developing a Jazz Language one kind of touches on almost everything that he goes into more depth with in all the other books. So that I do like that one a lot.
Okay.
And to add to that, you know, I have gotten uh a little bit of you know, like um sidetrack sometimes into learning like technique for technique's sake.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everything that I practice is not meant to be for the sake of technique itself. It's usually something that inspires me musically that I want to get together. And I
Yeah.
think that that's really important because that'll lead to better technique. But first and foremost, it's got to be something that you're like interested in trying to play and get better at. Then
Yeah.
maybe you'll go back and get into something where you're refining, you know, a certain scale or a certain sound or something. But for the most part, the patterns and the ideas that I'm trying to work on and play, they are already things that I want to actually have in my playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm separating some other thing from that as much, you know.
Makes sense. What are some of your biggest goals for improvement in your personal playing right now?
Cool. So yeah, I actually did my master's thesis on this, and I still think it continues to be what really separates the top level pros from the rest, and that is something called solo development,
Hmm.
meaning the bigger like keeping your eye on the bigger picture at the same time that you're playing, how you're going to develop your solo, where you're going to choose to make your peaks and valleys, so to speak,
Yeah.
where you're going to aim to have the climax in a certain song, where how you're going to start. Um, if you're going to play certain rhythms and melodic ideas at certain points to build and interact, and how you're going to be building your solo. So I guess, you know, all of that boils down to just refining and developing my ability to tell a story
Yeah.
is really where my head is at. And it's a little more abstract thinking than you know, what scale do I use over A7 flat 13,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know. So that's
Okay.
kind of what my mind's at. Yeah, yeah.
All right. This is another comedic one. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No,
Okay.
no. But
I'm kidding.
pineapple belongs in my stomach. That's for sure.
Just
But
not
just
on
not on
pizza.
pizza. Yeah.
What is your opinion on double lip embouchure for saxophone?
I tried it a while ago because I had this old school teacher that was telling me that Train got into it. And at that point, I thought to myself, well, if Train was doing it, I got to do it, you know. And I was like in that mindset. But then I realized, you know, Train had a lot of difficulty with his teeth later in his career.
Yeah.
And he even to the point where he was kind of crazy enough to be filing his own teeth.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a whole nother level of something that I don't think I'm gonna do. And when I realized that after maybe trying double lip for like a year in sixth grade, and I started to bite into my upper lip too much, I went
Mm.
back to the regular embouchure and um, you know, based on everything that people like Dave Liebman and Gary Keller and all these kind of like guru saxophone teachers talk about,
Yeah.
um, stemming from a Joe Allard thing, the double lip is not really the greatest thing for saxophone. And I kind of uh, fall in line with that thought. So I don't particularly like double lip. No.
Okay. What do you feel is the most important first step when learning and or teaching jazz to any age level?
Inspiration, inspiration, imagination. Where does that come from? Listening. Okay. Listen, listen, listen. And as you know, maybe greatest genius ever says, Albert Einstein, imagination is more important than knowledge. So I just love, that's my favorite quote of like all time for everything. And I think that is so applicable to music because you're learning all of this stuff in music and you're learning all these, you know, scales and rhythms and melodies. None of that matters if you're not really honoring your own creativity and your own imagination and your own inspiration. And
Yeah,
you get that from listening to music, you know?
yeah,
So I would say just inspiration is the biggest thing to go with, I think. Because
yeah,
that's what makes people want to discover and learn more, you know? Learning itself can be very crippling without any sense of inspiration.
okay, yeah. This is a question from one of our moderators, Jones. Coltrane often spoke about his influence both spiritually and musically from other cultures, musics, notably Indian music and 12-tone music. What would you say your biggest influences are from other forms of music in your playing or other cultures?
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't really see other other I kind of see jazz as a combination of all forms of music, you know. So I don't really think that there's any form of music that I haven't been influenced by, you know. It's impossible. Obviously I do think that uh what we call classical music, it has been extremely influential, but I also think what we call uh African you know, music has been extremely influential too. I think everything has influenced me. And so um, I wouldn't draw a line one way or the other, but I will say culturally, I haven't explored it enough and I haven't really delved into it enough, but I do have an interest in Buddhism. And I do know that that's what, you know, Herbie Hancock is. He calls himself a Buddhist. And to me, the attitude about what Buddhism is what makes the most sense to me. It's a very uh we are all connected kind of thing. It's also a very like, you know, what we call God or whatever that means is really we are that. Like the fact we are all uh evidence of what God is, you know, and that is within all of us. We are all special creations and we are all connected and we are all kind of like you know, neither there's no definite start or end to any of us, really. It's all part of one continuous continuum because, you know, it's scientifically proven too. All of the atoms that make you and I up are atoms and pieces of stuff that is traceable back to the Big Bang.
Yeah,
So I deeply believe that we all have some uh, connection between all of us.
yeah,
And Buddhism seems to kind of be the religion that most is in line with that way of thinking. But again, I have to do more research on that because I don't
yeah,
know enough about it.
yeah. Okay, this is probably our last question and a less heavy question.
Okay.
How do you maintain a jazz and classical embouchure if you do that? I'm not sure how much classical you play.
Okay. Uh, and this is coming from Chris Potter himself. And this is amazing, and he'll attest to this. I did a recording session um, with this great film composer, and half the recording Chris Potter was on, and I was lucky enough to be on one track, and so I asked him, "Hey man, can I come and hang and see Chris Potter
Yeah,
do his tracks?" And they said, "Sure, come on." And I just was so blown away, not just by obviously Chris's playing, but he did like 3 or 4 takes of the same song, and every single uh take was, it sounded like a different song.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like you would, and there's different. I'm going off on a tangent here, sorry, but there's different approaches. I feel like someone like maybe Michael Brecker would be playing similar stuff, but it would almost like becoming better. And then Chris's thing was like, it was almost like it's like a different tune every time. But
Mm,
anyway, that's a side story just about me just being totally blown away by that ability.
yeah.
Where I'm going with this is that we had a lunch break and we went downstairs and we're all eating lunch, and the subject of classical saxophone came up. And Chris immediately said, I can't stand that embouchure or that sound, classical saxophone sound. And this is something that I had believed for a long time. Also, the the classical embouchure is not really, in my opinion, the correct way of playing the saxophone.
Wow.
I I think that the classical quote unquote embouchure is really kind of some weird half-ass clarinet embouchure that they applied to saxophone, because at the time that that was being developed, they didn't know how to play the saxophone yet because it was a new instrument,
Yeah.
right? So the repertoire in the classical music world, and you know the information and the material and all of that stuff, that's that's incredible um, material and great stuff to be practicing. But as far as the embouchure goes with
Mhm.
classical saxophone, no offense to classical saxophone, because there are a lot of really good classical saxophone players out there who have developed that approach to it. But if we're going to get down to like how someone should be playing the actual instrument, I mean, I just don't think that that's the right way to be playing the instrument. I think it's the right way. I think it's the right way to be playing a clarinet, but the saxophone isn't a clarinet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some fallout from that.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's get the fight going. I hope. But it's no disrespect, because I will listen to classical saxophone players play, and I will like be in awe of the technique and the capability and all of the sound and things that they are able to do and develop. But when it comes down to like the actual way that you should be playing the instrument, I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like I can't respect and go and hear a classical saxophonist play and be like, wow, that guy's amazing, and be inspired and think that, obviously you might be a virtuosic saxophone player.
Yeah.
You know, that part 100% is cool. But when it gets down to like the embouchure of playing classical saxophone, I'm not a
Okay.
fan. Yeah.
Okay. I think that we'll call it a day there. Thank you for your time. I really appreciated having you on here. It was very entertaining and very informative.
Well, thank you, Wes. Man, it was an honor to be on your program also, and uh, I appreciate, not only you having me on, but also everything that you're trying to do to have interviews and a get to know like an older player kind of situation, which is really cool
Yeah,
that you have the entrepreneurial, wherewithal to even get this going.
I
So,
appreciate it.
congrats to you, man, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be it. I'll text you after this. I'll send you the recording of this after this, actually.
Okay, great.
Yep, sounds good. All right, I'll see you later.
Are we off?
I think
It's
we're on.
Okay, okay. So, is this going to be a podcast or a video too?
Gonna be a video.
Oh, okay, great. Very cool. Were there people responding to the classical thing?